Jo. So, herzlich willkommen, weiter geht's mit einem sehr vielversprechenden Vortrag. Palindrome, your life is mine. Und ich fackel auch gar nicht lang, ich begrüße einfach nur zusammen mit euch Max Brown. Danke, dass du da bist. Viel Spaß.
Hello. Hi. Is there anybody in this room that doesn't speak German? Okay, I'm going to do it in English now. I could have done it in German for you. I speak it to you? Is that better now? Sorry. Oh. Around 2006, I started making digital characters on the internet. This thing that taxi drivers now called big. The characters were really sweet, they were safe, they were fun to do, and people seemed to like them. And then one day I decided I wanted to do something a little bit more dangerous, something a little scary. And I came up with the idea of doing a character called Good God, it's like Sasha. Anyway, I came up with this idea of doing a character called Jack. Jack the Twitter. Ah, there he is. Jack the Twitter was a psychotic, liver-eating, Prokofiev-loving digital stalker who hated people who used geotagged tweets. Loosely based on me, because I started doing him when Foursquare came out and Twitter was just full of I'm at, and I've just won a badge. I hated Foursquare, and so did Jack. I had a lot of fun with Jack. Here we go. Had a lot of fun with Jack as a character. Most of the characters up until this point were just kind of, it was just a photo of me, a description, and they were doing silly things like sitting on the toilet, reading other people's tweets and that kind of stuff. But Jack was supposed to be menacing. Now, the first version of Jack was that Jack wasn't called Jack at the beginning. He was called Social Psycho. But that was shit. So I changed it to Jack the Twitter and spent about 1.5 to 2 hours every time I wrote anything that Jack had written or doing a video, 1.5 to 2.5 hours becoming Jack the Twitter. So as you can see back then, I had some curls here. This is what we call the bald mullet. In German, what would that be in German? Fukuhila son Glatze, or something like that. So I had to kind of get rid of all of that hair, so I put on this skull cap, and I made myself up, and I grew a beard over 1.5 hours. And this was actually really important. I found out later. These screens are taken from a video that I did that I actually put on Jack the Twitter's blog. And it helped people, later helped people who were becoming increasingly scared of this digital stalker to realize that it was actually a fictional character and it was a fictional story, and there isn't really such a person called Jack the Twitter. He doesn't exist. But this was the kind of stuff that he was doing. And what he actually did was just monitor everybody in London that was giving out geotag tweets. And I was doing this in Munich. I live in Munich. I wasn't actually in London. At no point during this project was I in London. Did I ever meet the people that he was stalking, his victims? And he had 3 or 4 lists on Twitter. So there was like a bronze victim list. And the people could see that they were on the bronze victim list. Silver, gold, and the ultimate list, no, 4 lists. The ultimate list for Jack was, in fact, worthy of punishment. So people could see that they were on this list worthy of punishment and started to get a little bit scared. But over the course of the project, people started to complain that they were only on the silver list. They wanted to be on the punishment list. So how did all of this, I'm really whizzing through this, I'm only 5 minutes. So how did all of this really work? Well, I was monitoring this. This is Will, who also happens to be a friend of mine. This is Will. Monitoring the Foursquare tweets was really easy because they were always geotagged. I could always see exactly where they were on a map. And at the beginning of the project, it was quite useful, so I could kind of like start getting a feel for where these people were going, where they were, and I could exactly pinpoint them at any given time. But during the course of the project, I started kind of like looking for stuff like this. So all he's done is he's sent out a picture, Morris dancing in Victoria, damn nice. Now the picture was this here. Okay, that was all that I had. So all I knew was that he was watching Morris dancers. I knew that he was in the Victoria part of London somewhere. And that was it. But when looking at the picture, I could find out an awful lot more. I could see that he was actually standing quite close to a pub, and on the pub it says pub and eating house. There's this strange glass building in the background of the picture, and there's this grey form here. So what I would do was it took me 2.5 hours to find out where Will actually was. I would use Google Street View and the satellite view to exactly pinpoint where all of Jack's victims were. So I knew that Will was standing about here. So I knew where he was, and what Jack would then do was write a little story. I was sat in a pub once chatting to a man he knew, so it would go on, so there's a bit of story. But the real trick of what Jack was doing was just giving tiny little bits of information that only somebody who was actually physically there would know. Because Will didn't say it in his tweet. It's a kind of like an emotional, psychological thing that Jack was doing here. So as I sup on my L and watch William watching the Morris dancers outside the Phoenix, because London and the UK is great, they have like a pub search. So I had a whole list of pubs in the Victoria area, and I found out that it was the Victoria, so the Phoenix. Outside the Phoenix, I realized that he hasn't tied any knots to keep me away from him. Maybe he's a fool, maybe he's just another lost soul in London. So what I would use, I was using the satellite and the Street View stuff to locate people. I was also using webcams to see what the weather was like. So I was introducing all of the time loads and loads of elements that only somebody that was actually there could see. But Jack was never there. Then what would happen is Jack would inform per Twitter the victim that they'd had an encounter and that he was worthy of punishment. And it would freak them out, utterly freak them out. Here's another example, Junks on the Thames, just a picture. This one was slightly more challenging. It took me 3.5 hours to find out where Chris was. So have you noticed how shit certain people are at taking pictures? And everybody on this list seemed to be really, really shit at taking pictures. All I had was this skyline in the back, and then you knew he was on the Thames. That was all I had. And I basically street viewed the entire stretch of the Thames until I found here on Tower Bridge the actual skyline. To find his exact position for taking that photograph, which was here, I had to use all of the metadata in Google to kind of actually find out exactly where he was. And in the story that then followed, you know, we've got little elements like the Blueprint Cafe. So I kind of guesstimated what route Chris had taken to get to this point. And down here, here is a little cafe called the Blueprint Cafe. So Jack sat in a cafe, Chris walks past the window, and then has an encounter with Chris. Jack had a rod of punishment. It was his mother's rod of punishment. He had serious mother issues. So that was basically the story. And it was just carrying on, and it was really fun, and people were kind of getting freaked out about it, which was kind of fun and interesting. And they were getting angry and moaning about privacy and all of that kind of stuff. It was a bit silly. So what was happening was I was doing this for months, every single day. I was spending hours watching 3-4 Twitter streams and pinpointing particular people. There were certain people that were better at showing where they were than others. And they were obviously much more interesting to me. I'm sure you've all got friends that overshare. You always know where they are. Yeah. I've been accused, actually somebody last week accused me of undersharing. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really, really proud of that. About 4 months ago, I didn't have a phone for 3 weeks. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me. People, take a break. Take a break. Take 4 weeks off. It's absolutely worth it. So I'm watching all of these people. I'm watching these feeds, and something fundamental started happening. I started realizing that I was profiling these people. I was becoming, I could not only profile these people, I could predict what they were doing or what they would do next. I could predict at what mood they would be in, at what time of day. I could actually start predicting what picture they would post next. I knew where they bought I knew which was their favorite Starbucks. I knew which was their favorite Starbucks coffee. I knew what music they liked. I knew their commute routes. I knew their route from home to the train station, what train they would be on, what underground station they would arrive in London, what route they would take to work, where they would eat lunch, when they would go back to work, how long they'd be at work, and when they'd go home again. And that's kind of interesting from a creative point of view. It's lots and lots of stuff that you can use to think about, lots and lots of stuff that you can write stories with, and that gives you a lot of creative energy. But at some point, it turned into criminal energy. Went quiet there. At one point, it stopped being kind of like a creative energy thing and turned into something resembling a criminal energy. I wanted to know more. At some point, I wanted to get onto a flight and actually see if my predictions were correct. So I actually wanted to step over the line of voyeurism into actually finding out where these people physically were and if I had predicted it correctly. And that's naughty. We shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's why I stopped. That's why I stopped. The reason I stopped is that scared me shitless. If somebody in Munich knew what 20 people in London were doing and would do, where they would be, where they were going, who they talk to, who their friends are, who their mums are, who their kids are, what playgrounds they take their kids to, that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. So I had to stop. I palindrome I. So what does that mean? Does anybody know the song I palindrome I? Is that one hand? Yeah. They Might Be Giants. Big band. Anybody who studied at the end of the 1980s, at the beginning of the 1990s, They Might Be Giants is a huge band, and it's a wonderful little song about eating yourself whole. And Jack, the character, was starting to consume Marcus, the writer. And that's why I had to stop. And that's actually why I've tried to kickstart Jack a number of times, but it just scares the living daylights out of me. So it got me thinking, obviously, because I like to think I'm kind of a little bit, I'm not stupid. So I had a little think about what's going on. What on earth is happening? How can I invade people's lives? And we're not even talking about their privacy here. We're talking about their lives. How can I invade people's lives and create fictional stories with their lives and get away with it? And I think we're seeing the reasons for this here at this very conference. And I think we've seen the reasons for this here at this very conference year on year on year on year for the last, 4 years. It's this, isn't it? This is the most scary image I've seen in the last ever. What the fuck was he thinking? Seriously, Robert. Seriously. We're the next image is quite nice because I did it too. This is me sat on my toilet, reading out, ironically, Robert's tweets 5 years ago. So why does that happen? Why are we doing this? This whole kind of, I'm here, I've got this, I'm with, look at my coffee, look at my salad. Why are we actually doing that? I mean, the reason for me sitting on a toilet reading out Robert's tweets and David Amano's tweets and everybody else's tweets that I did back then, this was the Kaiser's toilet, by the way. It's exactly the same. Well, it wasn't exactly the same reason. I was just taking the piss out of these people. It's kind of this casting culture that we live in now. And the people here, me included, although I'm undersharing at the moment, are becoming part of this casting culture. Have you seen this thing from Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters that was going around the web this week about X Factor and all that kind of stuff? Back in the day, we were just going to buy a shit guitar, be really shit at music, go into the garage, practice with some mates, be really, really shit, and then a year later be the biggest rock band in the world. That all happened because they just practiced and practiced and practiced and had lots of fun with it and just went on tour. Nowadays, we all think, my kids, I asked my youngest daughter 2 years ago, what do you want to be when you grow up? Any ideas what she said? Thank you, David. No. A superstar. She wanted to be a superstar. Of course, I was devastated by this. I bought her a guitar. Actually, I bought her two, an acoustic and an electric, and now she plays guitar. And she wants to be in a band, thank God, and not a superstar. So this whole, how many people here have a blog? Okay, how many people write in that, how many of you write regularly? Come on, okay. How many of you that run the blog and write regularly, after posting a post, go to your stats and F5 for an hour? Okay, I know because I do it too. And it's that whole, we've got this whole channel that we can use and kind of like present ourselves. And in our strange little Republica world, we can all be stars, at least for 3 days. And when you have your own blog, you can be a star at least for an hour of F5ing. But what's really very scary, and that's kind of the point of what I'm talking about here is, what Jack was doing was he was folding reality into fiction. This character was taking something that was happening, making out a completely new story, and folding it back into the reality of that person. That's a very kind of academic way of saying I was stealing their lives for my own purpose. Now, if I could do that as just some strange bloke with curly hair, hang on, sorry, I've got to drink something. If some strange bloke in Munich with curly hair and funny black glasses can do that kind of thing and gain some kind of notoriety, people start enjoying it and finding it funny, imagine what would happen if a media company like Fox started doing the same. With all the money and all the power and all the network channels and all the bits and pieces that they have. Imagine if they started taking all of that information that you're pumping out there free of charge to make their own new kind of reality sitcom thing. That's the first bottle in my session, thank you. Imagine how cheap that would be for them. What's the most important thing for any media house at the moment when making television today? What's the most important thing? Money. Cheapness. It's got to be cheap. Do you think they do reality shows because they're interesting? Do you think they do reality shows or scripted reality because it's culturally relevant? They do them because they're cheap. So, and the cheapness is running out. They're running out of stuff. And guess who's giving them stuff? Any guesses? You are. You and me and everybody else is giving them stuff. And the first place they're going to start is with the 5,000 people that visited the Republica in Germany. If you don't think this is happening, it's already happening. It's happening every single time that Paul Sieben do Voice of Germany. They're starting to blend in our tweets. That's kind of blended media. They call it blended media. RTL are doing it too. So your comments are becoming part of the format. It's just the first step. They're enriching their formats with cheap, free, conversation-based content. Now, some of you may know, and I think maybe a couple of you have been waiting for this bit. When I posted this paper, I picked 90 people randomly that would be at the conference. Is anybody's face on here? Yeah? 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 Oh, I know you. Hello. We really need to talk. Okay, so you're all here. Here is really good. Here is relevant. Here is important. Here is the place where Jack would start. You make it so easy for people like Jack to invade your lives. The first thing you all did when the tickets were out was to log on to this lanyard thing and tell us all you would be there. Everybody on my list was on this list. Thanks very much. And I knew that you were here because you checked in yesterday. So thanks ever so much for checking in. Every single digital stalker, everybody who wants to steal your life knows that you're here. Thank you very much. So what I've done is I've not, these are anonymous, there's no names, but you could probably guess who some of these people are. This first one is a female, and I'd like to point out that there are 2 females I've picked and 1 woman. Aufschrei. Okay, there are two females and 1 male. Maybe. The females, it's very interesting. In Germany, they're all German. The females, the people that share the most about their lives are female and live in Cologne. Okay, so this young lady lives in. This is her color palette, by the way. This is a color palette based on the average colors sent to Instagram. So these are her favorite colors. I know for a fact that I'm going to meet her at Nimit Grill. So if I actually physically wanted to go and stalk her, the chances of meeting her there are very, very high. I know that she has an IKEA kitchen. I know what coffee pot she uses because it's in the IKEA kitchen. I know that she has a Vodafone contract. I know that she's got a guy. She's got a boyfriend. She doesn't like loud people, but her neighbors play the guitar. What else do we know about? She was in Brighton last year. She likes what is this again? Angus and Julia Stone down the way. So if I wanted to, how do you strike up a conversation with a woman? You start to talk about music, my fellow men. She makes movies and she likes crochet. So she was probably in the gorilla knitting session yesterday. So I know all that kind of stuff about her. The second is a guy, is a man. Oh no, I've forgotten something really important. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to run out of time, but I don't care. On the 1st of May, she was at this tram stop in Cologne with a big bag of bread rolls. And she forgot to take back her umbrella to her mum. I hope you've done that if you are here. The second guy is the second one is a guy. This is what he saw this morning when he left his hotel. He likes swimming a lot. He's a late night kind of guy, so I'd be engaging with his life somewhere between 11 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning. He likes Italian food. Something's gone wrong in his life. He's not actually talked about it, but I can tell. How can I tell? He's starting to change things. He's bought a Feng Shui book to kind of reorganize his house. And I think he's had his heart broken. He's actually in this room. I think you've had your heart broken. He's listened to Prince Pi, not only just Prince Pi, but one particular lead, Laura, 74 times on Last FM this month. So, and the second one, I bet you can all guess who this one is. If you really, really think about it, you can guess who this is. She's probably had a sports injury in the last half a year. She likes Brecht. She likes gin. She really likes the song I've Got a Hero. No, what's it? Bonnie Tyler? Holding Out for a Hero. I don't think she likes the Bonnie Tyler version, though. I think she likes the Ella Maya Bowen version. I think she used to be in a band. I think she thinks she's a bit of a singer-songwriter. And this is what she sees every week, at least twice a week. That's what she sees twice a week. So what could I do with that kind of stuff? Well, this is all the stuff that I can engage with. I can write stories about this. I can invade their life. I can fold it back into my reality. I was thinking about doing it with this character called Young Barnabas. This is me at 16. Look at all my hair. I had curls. What the fuck happened? But I didn't do it because I got the fear again. Watching you all made me scared again. I could literally predict what you were going to do next. I could predict what photo you were going to post next. So what about law? Everybody wants to talk about law at Republica. That's the kind of thing we want to talk about. I don't know. I'm not a law kind of guy. I write stories and make shit up and piss about on the internet. Okay, I'll leave everybody else at Republica to kind of think about that kind of thing, especially the Germans who do like to talk about that. I don't think law will help you. I don't think that the law, any kind of legislation, can help you. The only thing that can really help you and can stop you from me stealing your life is constraint. So, closing statement, do more, say less about what you're doing. Thank you very much. I hope that was interesting.
Thank you, Markus. Thank you.